Good morning or good afternoon if you're watching this live. If you're watching it pre-recorded, thanks for tuning in. We're going to wait just a second to allow some more people to join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to cover. Hey, John. Good to see you again. You and I were in some similar seminars yesterday. Thanks for joining. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is about storytelling, and I'm going to tell you how to share your superpower. My name is Scott Kolbe, and I work with a company called Market Your Craft as a marketing advisor. And we work with breweries to help them tell their story. And today we're going to cover something very specific. It's the brand story. And we're here to tell you why this is the single most important line in craft beer marketing. I'll start out with my own example, right? Market Your Craft. This is our homepage. And we want to let you know right up front what we do and what value we can give to you. And really, that is, we're going to help drive traffic to your brewery tasting room. Now, we go on to explain later that we're going to do that by way of driving traffic, building engagement, and capturing new sales. It's not easy to come up with that one-liner, that very specific line that you want to leave someone who visits your website for the first time, that story you want to leave them with. And to give an example, let's go to the Great America Beer Festival. Now, there were 290 medals awarded to 256 breweries. Amazing, right? Only 34% of those 265 breweries have figured out what we're going to talk about today, which is why we intend to leave you with the tools you need to come up with that one-liner for your own brewery if you're not using it already. We're going to take a look at some examples later in the presentation just to make sure we get through all of our content, because what we do is help breweries like yourselves, wineries, distilleries, and now even non-alcoholic and functional beverages figure out this critical aspect of marketing. Now, why is this important? As you know, brewery owners, managers, craft is crowded with over 8,000 breweries. Now that means it's harder and harder every single day for your craft brewery to differentiate itself. Customers are lazy, and I don't mean that to be critical. It's just the truth. We don't want to spend any more energy than we have to against something. That's drinkers or consumers of any product. This one-liner will form the foundation for all of your marketing efforts. It's the filter, because if something doesn't ladder up to your brand story, then you shouldn't be doing it. And that applies to events. It applies to social media posts. It applies to all of your digital efforts, public relations. You need that kind of confidence that the one-liner that you're sharing with your customers, your guests, your visitors, is the foundational element for all of your marketing efforts and what all of those ladder up to. We want to cut through some of the confusion with terminology because it's easy to be a little confused when it comes to marketing. We really want to take a look at the brand story as the center of the marketing universe. It's the one thing that you absolutely control and somewhat unique to your brewery. And then from there, we talk about marketing, right? Some of you are lucky enough to have a marketing department, dedicated marketing individuals. That's great. These are the people who are your foot soldiers, putting your message out into the world in a really authentic way and trying to capture drinkers, new and current. Now, when you start talking about advertising, sometimes brewery owners get scared. Boy, this is going to be really expensive. Well, this is the aspect of marketing that is the paid piece, whether you're boosting posts, you're buying advertising, maybe you're sponsoring an event. It's the brand story that the marketing folks have told, which is landing or resonating with your customers, that you choose to amplify. And that's when you're spending more money against getting that message out to more people. All right. Sometimes we try to equate the brand story with the origin story. And man, the origin story is easy to tell. It's easy for you as brewery owners, founders, to tell how you got started. Sometimes that looks like I started in my basement as a home brewer, and all my friends and family, they said, damn, it's really good. You should think about doing that commercially. And so you get excited about it, you get the money together, and you open up a brewery in your area. And that's a great story, and it's from the heart, and nobody can tell that story like you do, right? The problem is that anymore with 8,000 plus breweries, a lot of people have that very same story. I started out in home brewing. I thought I could brew a better beer. I was sick of the beer in my area. I wanted to fight the man, kind of David and Goliath style, right? Well, when you're not differentiated, then the consumers who haven't tried you yet, they get confused, and you have to find a way to cut through that clutter. There is a time when the brand story can equal the origin story, but it's a very rare occasion, right? You could really claim to be the first at something. That's hard in craft beer nowadays, because what are you going to be the first at? Are you going to be the first to infuse something? Are you going to be the first to sour something? Are you the first to open up a brewery with all sorts of entertainment or dining options? It's a tough story to tell, but if you can legitimately say that you were the first at something, then go ahead and lean into that, and that origin story can really serve as the brand story. Or if you're indisputably the best, if thousands of independent researchers and 5 zillion awards later, you can legitimately say, yeah, I'm the best at something, then hey, that's a brand story in and of itself. Own that. Or if you take more of a charitable or a philanthropic, as we would say, approach to your beer, net proceeds go to the local charity or go back to the community or go back to craft. These are real stories that could serve as the brand story, and fewer people, fewer and fewer brewers are telling those stories. And so you, in fact, can lean into that, and that differentiates you, right? You know, we look outside for some examples of this. Red Bull. I mean, everybody knows this. It's an iconic origin story where the co-founder was traveling back from Thailand and had this magical drink to help him get through the jet lag. And that became Red Bull and the iconic brand that it is today globally. Origin story becomes the brand story and the foundation for all their marketing efforts. How about Tom's? When Blake went to Argentina back in 2006, and he was awestruck by the needs, and he decided at that point that he was going to found a purpose-based company that actually gives a pair of shoes to a child in need with the purchase of any shoes, 1 for 1. And this is a powerful origin story, and it translates also to their mission and vision and every aspect of who they are, customer facing. How is your brewery similar to that if your origin story really ladders up? What if you lie? Now, I would never, ever be a proponent of this, but there is a lot of lying going on right now. And let's take, for example, non-alcoholic. And in full disclosure, I have a non-alcoholic client. that I've really learned a lot about the industry, but it's still so new. And breweries, commercial and otherwise, are trying to figure this out. What is this space? What's the potential there? Well, there are a lot of breweries in North America who claim to be the first dedicated non-alcoholic brewery, the first certified this. And we have to be careful. This is a smaller space. Non-alcoholic is a smaller space. So 5 or 10 breweries claiming to be the first is a smaller base of liars. But unless you can legitimately say you were the first and back that up, the risk of lying is customers will see right through that. We are not at a point anymore where someone can claim something and just expect it to live, expect it to land with customers. Customers will research this because they're not going to stand behind a brand that they don't believe in. Your brand story has to resonate with your customers. And that's what this whole exercise is about. It's about giving you those tools that you need to figure out the one-liner that you put on your marketing materials and front and center on your website, so that when a new customer comes to visit, they know exactly what you stand for and what they're going to get from an experience with you. So we start by choosing a storyline. Now, storylines are important. Call it what you will, but there are a number of different ways that you can really skin this exercise. You can start with the problem. Craft beer in my market in Denver just doesn't taste good. And that's not the case. Denver has some pretty amazing beers. But if there was a problem that you were trying to solve, I was disappointed with the options in my locale. And so I decided to start a brewery to give customers like me choice. That's a problem. You could also embrace the underdog. This is, again, the David and Goliath. We are fighting the American light lagers with a flavorful beer that customers will love. Kind of the Avis we try harder model, right? Redefining an experience. We're going to give our visitors and our guests a crafted beer experience with beer tenders who are really knowledgeable about the beers that they're serving, and they're experts at pairing it with food. That's pretty cool. That's differentiating. Rabid fans. I had the opportunity to work with Maker's Mark outside of the beer industry, but just iconic in how they have a platform nearly 100% committed to supporting their ambassadors. That fan base is so huge that they've basically built their marketing campaigns and plans around it, and it's worked incredibly for them. Having visible founders like Sam from Dogfish Head, I mean, this is a real live person who has stories and personality and voice. And if you have that kind of asset inside your organization, lean into it. Just bring it to the forefront, because people can associate and people can relate to that. Confidence and a moral compass and doing good. Again, like the Tom's example, giving back to the community, your local community, the craft community on a larger scale. So if you take a look at what you have to offer and you can kind of pair it up with one or more of these storylines, then you start to see, oh, okay, I can differentiate myself and my brewery by starting to lean into these kind of conversations, which are going to land, which are going to resonate with your broader customer base. The emotional chord. People talk about it in marketing. You have to get at the emotions of people if you really want to make a difference. And it's true nowadays, especially with 8,000 plus breweries. How are you going to cause that person to pause? I'm taking a look at all the options I have with breweries near me. I'm going to a new brewery this Friday night, and out of the 5, this is the one that kind of made me pause. I'm going to look a little deeper. Now, once you get that hesitation, that's when you've got them. You've made an emotional connection. you've really struck that chord with them. You at least have an opportunity for them to explore further, if not convert and go and have a drink at your place. So next up, we're going to talk about that customer, because in order to know if you're going to create an emotional connection, if your story, your brand story is going to land with them, you have to understand who they are. And it's really easy for us to say, well, I know John, I know Sue at the end of the bar. They come in every Thursday night, and I know that they've got 2 drinks, and they play this playlist on the jukebox, and man, they're great customers. These are valuable people. I don't dispute that. I'm only suggesting that we want to help you drive 3 times the amount of traffic. We want you to replace every single one of the Johns and Sues at the end of the bar with 3 additional people. Now, I'm not saying anything about your current customer base. I just know how difficult it is right now to attract new people. And these are the tools that you need to do it. So looking at your current customer and what they like, what their interests are, what they drink, what they're about, this is all very valuable. But let's broaden that, and really let's take a look at, okay, if I went to the 2 towns over, if I'm right now regionally located and I go to the entire state, if I'm in the state and I look at multi-state, what is your net? What is the net of customers that you really want to attract? It might not be the same likes and interests, hobbies, and otherwise as the immediate group of people who currently visit your brewery. So just look a little broader. Let's use the example of a new band. Take it out of the industry for a second. Now, if a friend of yours said, hey, I'm going to go see this new band this weekend in Denver. Why don't you come with me? The tickets are $100. All right, you're going to ask yourself, well, how much do I like this friend? You're going to ask yourself, have I seen this band before? Have I heard about this band? Maybe not. The first thing that you're going to do is Google it. Okay, Google turns up a website and a Facebook page. You go to the website, and that website doesn't say anything about the style of music that they play, where they've played in the past, who they've opened for. And your friend's asking you to spend $100 on that. I mean, it's a challenging proposition, right? If the band doesn't come forward with who they are and why you should care, their brand story, essentially, then are you willing to commit to go see them? Yeah, it's interesting. We sometimes go outside of industry for examples that you, a brewery owner or manager, can really relate to. And what we do at Market Your Craft is we do exactly that. We help breweries, wineries, distilleries distill that message down, that brand story, to come up with that brand story with on-site and virtual workshops. That's our jam. That's our sweet spot, our superpower, if you will. So we continue with understanding the competitor. You understand your storyline, you know what you're about, and then you're starting to understand your consumer. Now, when you layer into that your competitor, you're starting to see yourself in the broader context of the craft beer business in or around you, your city, your region, your state. So don't just look at it as the other breweries down the street. There are far more competitors than you may be aware of. It's not only the wineries, distilleries, the other tasting rooms. It's entertainment venues, bars, restaurants, any place where your customer could spend their hard-earned dollar and have an experience. That's your competitor. You have to look at it broadly like that. Like we talked about with the consumers, if you're regional and you want to go to state, if you're state and you want to go multi-state, that net of your audience, it's important to play to that net and to understand the competitors that will be competing with you actively in those areas. And then objectivity. It's really hard to be objective as a craft brewery owner, a manager, someone who's invested, has a personal stake, has built this with sweat and tears and blood and passion. How can you be objective in that circumstance? You need to. You really need to look objectively at where you're winning and where you're lagging behind your competitors. Again, right down the street or a state over. But then to focus in on those areas, those niches, if you will, that you could truly own. Something tangible, something you can hold on to, something you can claim. And when you understand that, you're that much closer to just nailing your brand story and offering that up on a silver platter to your new customer, your new drinker who hasn't experienced you yet. Because what you're looking for is not loyalty anymore. I grew up in the loyalty space, working with brands like Jim Beam and Maker's Mark and Sierra Nevada, and man, just iconic brands who have a loyal following, but it's not the only beer that their customers are going to drink. There are far too many options. We drink by way of occasion nowadays. It's less about loyalty. And so we would suggest that share of mind is the goal here, not absolute loyalty. That's unrealistic. It's not practical. So in order to have share of mind, you really know how customers view your competitors. You really have to dig into are your customers, your potential customers, are they impressed by the traffic? And there's always a wait. That must mean that brewery down the street is wildly popular, or their beers are crazy good. Maybe that brewery down the street is always asked to do collaborations with other breweries, other partners. They're always in the media. There's a lot of press around them. They've got a big footprint at events. These are the things that are important to your customers. That doesn't necessarily need to translate to, I need to do these events just like my competitors. That's not the point of it. It's just truly understanding where you sit in the customer's mind, alongside, below, above your competitive set. Because you want to find out how you're different. This is what you want to lean into. You want to know what's in it for the customer. You want the customer to have a perception of your brewery that's just slightly different than the others. Because again, that's going to cause a moment of pause for them. And that pause is the sweet spot where you can deliver a message about the events coming up this week, or the brand new beer releases, or an amazing taproom staff. Then you've got them. You've earned the opportunity for their business at that point, because you've told them what is unique to you. Like we talked about in the beginning, it's difficult to be truly unique. We can be very subjective and say, my brewery is the best, and nobody brews beer like my brewing staff, and our team just knows the ins and outs of the beer industry and can perfectly pair a beer with literally everything. It's fair, but again, it's rare that you're going to be able to say something that another brewery can't claim as well. So the point is relevance. Whatever you have, whatever you think makes you different, this is an opportunity for you to lean into it. But lean into it with voice and personality, unique to you. A little bit of attitude, maybe a little bit of edge. Maybe your brewers are extremely innovative and creative, and so there's an aspect of your brewery that still stands out. And so you can lean into that with the brand story. And lastly, it's really about promises. You can't promise an absolutely different experience, but you can promise that guests and visitors to your brewery are going to be really happy with a rotating beer selection, or we bring in those food trucks and we have an opportunity to really educate and entertain with the pairings that we have. That these are truthful, honest statements that really land well with the customers. But if we look back to that stat with all the JBF winners, and 34% of them actually say on their homepage why a customer should care about them, who they are, what they deliver, why they're in business. I mean, they're lucky. They're lucky that they've got amazing beers and there's a public relations machine behind them when you win a GABF award for sure, but it's not it. That's not all. Sustainability means drawing new customers. And again, the tools that you're learning today will help you to do exactly that. We're challenging you. We want you to look at things a little differently. We want you to look at your business from a consumer's perspective. A lot of people talk about consumer first, or you have to focus on the consumer. That it's trite to a certain extent until you're a brewery owner or a manager and you're challenged by this every single day. Now, these tools, these 3 or 4 exercises that we went through in just a couple minutes, that already puts you legs above and beyond your competitors who aren't looking at their competitors, their customers, their brand story, their offering in this way. You may be jotting down notes furiously. We've got a download for you at the end of this presentation, and it might help to fill in some of the gaps in my speedy presentation in your notes. So it comes down to the purpose of this presentation, why you're all watching. It's the brand story and the single most important line in craft beer marketing. You've stuck with me this far, and you've got the building blocks, you've got all the components, you've got an idea of your approach to a storyline. You clearly understand your consumers, again, beyond John and Sue sitting at the end of the bar. You've got a line on your competitors, and you've got maybe a handful of things that make you different. So this is your superpower. You've got great beer, and you know how to market to new customers. If you have great beer that doesn't sell, if you have great beer that nobody knows about, it's tough to keep the lights on, right? But if you have great beer that lands with customers, see, that's a winning combination. And it's a superpower because, quite honestly, not very many people look at their craft beer business this way, which is going to edge you above them. So all of this to say, okay, Scott, how do you do it? What's the formula? I want to make sure that this lands. Well, I'm going to say right now, there's no single formula. There is a guide. There's a framework that you can use. And we really look at it this way. If you were to write a one-liner that you proudly displayed within one scroll of your homepage, it's a business that really takes some sort of bold action to provide some value to guests who deserve more. Now let's break that up a little bit. Again, it's worth repeating. A business that takes some sort of bold action to provide a great value to customers who deserve more. You might say to me, I don't need to tell them I'm a brewery. I mean, that's silly, right? Brewery is in the name. Okay, what business are you in? You're a brewery, you might make wines and seltzers as well. You're a distillery, you've branched out, you've got a second location that might have beer in addition. My point is that it's not enough to just have a website with a homepage and a picture with all of your product offerings. You need to tell them what to expect if they visit your place, and that is you're a brewery, you're a winery, you're a distillery. What business are you in? Now, taking bold action really goes back to that storyline. If you're the David and Goliath story, if you're changing the experience, if you're doing good, whatever line you aligned with, that's going to play a part in choosing the right verb, but you need to own it. It's not enough to say, we're a tap room that offers. Do you offer? Does that mean you curate beers from local breweries, or do you actually brew on site? Oh, okay, you brew on site. Well, let's go further. Do you want to create? Do you innovate? The bold action that you take in this part of the brand story is really important, but it goes back to, again, what you can uniquely offer and lean into. Because the point is that you're delivering value for the guest. Again, it seems very simple, but what are you giving them? Craft beer. Sure. A selection of craft beer? Yeah, better. What if you have beer and spirits? Okay, well, that's something you need to say too. What if you really have an amazing music venue? How about a brew pub that actually serves paired food alongside these amazing handcrafted beers? So size up your offering to your consumers, and let's add that to your brand story. Again, that one-liner, because your consumers deserve more. And if you call it out in the brand story, it's the guest who has needs, has interests, has passions. The more that you can define your guest in your brand story, that one-liner, the first thing that they see on that indie band's website example that we talked about, then I start to see myself visiting your brewery. I can picture myself in that tap room photo that you feature prominently on your website, right? Because if I can see myself there, then you've made an emotional connection with them. And they're not going to want to say they were wrong. They're going to lean into that decision. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple practical examples. The bare minimum, right? We are a brewery that offers beer and seltzer for customers to enjoy in our tap room. It's good. It's definitely better than nothing because you've said who you are. You're a brewery. But let's go one step further. What if you were a local brewery? Again, local, it's nice. Some people really align with that. They look for that. That makes beer. Okay, you don't just curate a collection of tap handles. You actually make the beer on site. For visitors are better than customers. People don't see themselves as customers. They see themselves visiting someplace to enjoy while listening to music. Oh, okay. Oh, they've got a jukebox and it's a lively kind of entertaining spot. You start to get clearer on the messaging and what exactly a customer could expect when they visit your brewery. One step further, and this is not meant to be right for everybody, but how about this? Discover Ale Works, a fictitious brewery that I own, brews, again, active, A selection of rotating beer styles. Great. The customer can expect something new every time they visit. I dig that. For guests, even more personal than customer and visitor. To enjoy with live music, oh, okay, they must have, a small half shell, or maybe they've got some dedicated space in the brewery tasting room. And Denver, geographically specific, most sought after food trucks. Wow, okay, they must have a pretty good relationship, because I know how flaky food trucks can be, and you can't always get them to show up, right? Most sought after must mean it's a pretty good selection of food to pair with the beer. This is not the formula. Again, it's the framework. But imagine your own story, your brewery, being told in one line right at the top of your homepage, alongside a beautiful photo of your tasting room, or a smiling photo of your beer tenders, or part of the process of brewing. How cool, right? So in a split second, when somebody's deciding to visit a brewery near me and they go to that homepage, they know exactly what they're going to get from you. And they can even see themselves enjoying a beer at your place, right? Win. Okay. Now, all that to say, your superpower is making great beer and selling truckloads of it. But you have to have the great product and market the great product in order to do so. Your superpower is taking the time and the care as a team to understand your storyline, to get in the head and the heart of your customer, your drinker, to know your competitors and to understand your niche, like where you fit. And then finally, to offer something unique of value, and to put that together in a one-liner that will land with your current and your prospective future drinker. Again, the application of this could be the website, it could be your public relations, it could be your social. The website translates to the Google search results. Like, this one-liner is essentially your elevator pitch to a new customer. And it serves as the filter for all of your marketing efforts. Now, I know I've talked an awful lot, right? And we've got a couple comments and a couple questions, and I definitely want to open it up. But I want to also walk you through some of those examples we talked about from GABF. Allagash, right? Our friends. They have a very pointed story up front on the website, what they stand for. Now, you're going to be able to take a look at these examples after the presentation. I will say that most of them take the form of an our story, which is not necessarily the brand story, but there are aspects of it that could be pulled out for that one-liner. Because again, as managers and owners of breweries, we want that one-liner, and we want that to stand out above all else. Allagash, as crazy good as they are, award winners, brewery of the year, like, they still need, or they could still benefit from the one-liner that would attract that new customer. We've got All Season Brewing Company. Again, another award winner with a good little story up front, right on their homepage. Amalgam, small batch blendery. I mean, perfect. If I'm into that, then I just qualified Amalgam and disqualified others in that brewery search near me. Now we've got Arts District in LA, some great beers. Very simple story. Well, let's take a look at Big Storm. Nice little story. Again, right up front on their homepage. Clear pictures, beautiful visuals. They're nailing it. Not only on the GABF awards side, but also on the marketing side. Caboose. They start to paint a picture for you, right? when you start talking in terms of customer language, what the customer can expect, what they're going to get out of it, you're automatically heads above other breweries that don't take that same consumer focused approach. Cerebral right here locally, they're killing it. And they call it out right here, scientific methodology. So it's the art and science of brewing, and they have fun with it. But you know exactly what you're getting. Chain line. They're leaning into the Pacific Northwest and kind of their geography and the attitudes they're in, the lifestyles. And I know we're going fast through this. Craft Coast. I mean, how simple is this? They paired two staples, handcrafted beer and Baja style tacos. There's no question what I'm going to get when I visit Craft Coast. Devine in Florida. Why do they stand out? I mean, they call it out. They tell you what you're going to expect when you visit. Deft, high quality European inspired beers, unique and fun tasting room. But they go further to say dog friendly, family friendly, food friendly, and just overall friendly. So you get a complete picture of what that environment's going to look like. And then they add a little bit of attitude, a little personality, some tone at the end, right? And just overall friendly. Desperate souls, departed souls. So we have to be careful here. Again, when you start using the words first, you need to be able to back it up. And they do a good job telling their story. Philadelphia's first. All right, again, it's a bold claim. They need to be able to back it up. But a laid back spot to hang out with friends. Perfect. Last couple. Eel River, really leaning into, again, the Pacific Northwest. Eleven Lakes, great little story here. Leans into the community aspect and what they're really giving back. Eureka, here's a bit of attitude for you, right? We make pretty good beer and give great high fives. I mean, that's fun. It's fun. It's a little bit of attitude. They call out the geography, and this is what you can expect when you get there. Ex Novo, a good example. And then lastly, the ghost fish. They're reinventing. Again, they're challenging. They're coming up with something new. They're really trying to lean into and own that space. So what we learned today was your brand story is really your superpower. It's your ability to understand what makes you different, your storyline, your customer, and your competitor, and where you fit within the context of craft beer in the markets you serve. Everything starting with the customer. So I really want to thank you for listening in. We talked about the download on marketyourcraft.com, and for the people attending the Craft Beer Professionals Fall Virtual Conference, we're happy to give this away for free. So through the end of the month, jump on to marketyourcraft.com and just pick any guide that you'd like and use the CBP Fall 2021 discount code for a free download of that. We really want to thank Andrew, the sponsors, and Craft Beer Professionals for the opportunity to present today. Certainly love talking about craft and would also love to help you tell your unique brand story. So, you know, what's crazy about a 45-minute presentation where you don't take a breath is you also didn't leave a ton of opportunity for questions. But we definitely have some active participation in the chat. John, certainly appreciate you. All of sales and marketing is what's in it for the customer. We couldn't agree more. It's a beer that tastes good to you, but if it doesn't taste good to the customer, you're not going to sell much. So sales and marketing is exactly that, a focus on the customer. I know that we have a lot of people viewing, and if there are any follow-up questions, if we can be of any help at all, feel free to email me at scott@marketyourcraft.com or visit marketyourcraft.com to sign up for free evaluation of your brand. And we'd love to have the opportunity to help you tell your story. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and best wishes for a successful craft beer business, and enjoy the rest of the Craft Beer Professionals Conference. Cheers, folks.